Okay, art school. So we have art school question number one. Is art college worth the amount of money it takes to attend? Art school question number two. Is art school really worth it? Making things is the only thing I truly care for and I don't want it to be ruined. Is the process and debt worth the chance? So art school, well, private art school is a heavy question. So for a little bit of context, I don't know if you all are old enough that you would remember a couple years ago, Congress and everyone was freaking out about student loan debt. They're still kind of freaking out about it, but you don't hear people trying to make laws to cut down on it anymore. At that time, the average student loan debt was 25 grand when you got out. To put that in context, so that's everybody, that's the number they're freaking out about, is 25 grand. The average student loan debt from MCAD is in the neighborhood of 45 grand. So double the average, and the average is what people are freaking out about. So I know people who have $102,000 worth of debt. I know people that have $80,000 worth of debt. I think I got away around 40. And that's because I was an RA for 2 years and because I got some scholarships. Otherwise, I think I would have been more in the 60 range. So that's thing number one to think about. Now, on the one, anything above 30 is probably a massive inconvenience. But the thing to think about is like whether you can make that money back. So me going for graphic design, if I had incurred, say, $100,000 worth of debt, that would suck. It would suck incredibly bad, but I could get through that because I'm going into a field where I'm going to spend 4 years in school, and then I'm going to jump, hopefully, into a career that is based on those 4 years. My friend that is a painter with $102,000 worth of debt, horrible, terrible nightmare. She basically moved back to her small town in Michigan to live with her parents and works like 3 jobs trying to pay that debt down. Because her 4 years of school don't prepare her for anything besides painting. Does that make sense? And do we all understand that painting is a thing, it's a craft, it can be a profession, but it is not an industry. There is no painting industry for you to do 4 years of art school and then be like, all right, I'm ready for my painting job. Like, that doesn't exist. Most of what we do here doesn't exist as an industry. So that's like a thing to wrap your head around. Now, one of the problems with my friends racking up 100 grand or 80 grand or whatever it is that not only is the main thing they know how to do not connected to a way to make money. Because the first thing is like, I would never say don't study painting. But I also wouldn't say do all your electives in other useless stuff. So if you do all your electives in postmodern theory or literary criticism or the history of art, none of that is adding up for you to get somewhere. So that's all scary and shitty. It worked out for me. All my electives could be in bullshit because my actual job is a thing that exists. So, like, some contrast there. That said, this will be the advice that I give my daughters, who right now are nowhere near going to art school or thinking about art school. But if they wanted to go to art school, I would be cool with it, provided that they did their electives or a minor in something that will allow them to work. So a friend of mine said that they had this advice from their uncle that they said they never understood until fairly recently, which was no matter what you major in, always minor in business. Very smart idea. Because then you can get out of art school and you can actually have some leverage for making money to support your work, because maybe your work is going to take off and it's going to find a market, it's going to find fans, it's going to find an audience. In which case, that backup plan, it's not even a backup plan, I think it's a maintenance plan, isn't really as necessary. But the beauty of having a skill set that you can leverage, coding, maybe technical drawing, copywriting, maybe grant writing, any number of things, accounting maybe. The beauty of that is it lets you make decisions with a degree of freedom up front. So if you have a ton of loans and no useful skill, and all of a sudden you find yourself in the market and you have to figure out how to make it happen, all of a sudden you end up having to do like bullshit jobs that demand a ton of time in order to pay your student loans, which sucks. So one way or another, you have very little time for making art. So the question is like, do you want to have some money so that you can actually pay for supplies? Or do you just want to slave away working as a bartender or a pizza delivery person, or God forbid, like an admin in an office where your job is basically to answer people's emails, all of which pay shit, be working just as much but have less money for supplies, and all of a sudden constantly be worrying about stupid things like rent and insurance. So I would totally say it's worth it. Just don't spend 4 years only getting good at and knowledgeable about things that no one will ever pay you to do. The idealistic part of art school is that people want to pretend like you shouldn't worry about that. Like, oh, you could just be a teacher. Like, no, you just can't be a teacher. Because 90% of the time, they don't care about your art history minor. They care about, did you get a master's degree in art history? So like that. So not to say you can't be a teacher, but it's to say that is a very bad plan. Plus, teachers are broke too. The only good thing about being a teacher is you get to hang out with artists and teach, which is fun. But you still do this thing that doesn't pay much better than being the admin or the pizza delivery person. So don't abandon the thing that you want to do, and don't not go to, say, the school that inspires you or has this great faculty or has this great body of work. Just don't also study non-functional furniture and then do all your electives in more stuff that no one is ever going to be willing to exchange cash for. Find something that you like doing or you have an aptitude for, and work on building that up so that, look, it's pretty common to meet lots of painters who went all in on painting for decades, and eventually they were so in debt and so bogged down, they deferred their student loans so many times that now they have some job that they kill themselves working, say, 2 jobs, and they don't get to paint at all. I would rather sacrifice some coolness during art school so that my 20s can be spent building something for my 40s, 50s, 60s, rather than using my 40s, 50s, 60s to make up for 2 decades of being broke. And then having to rationalize all kinds of things you didn't get to do. So like you end up rationalizing how your friends all own a house and you don't, or how you didn't get to have kids because you were so single-mindedly focused on this career thing and then it didn't pan out. And you got to be like, no, but I got my dogs. Like knowing deep down that like what you did was you screwed up massively for decades at a time. Don't do that. Does that make sense? Is there any sort of follow-up question to that? And so like to be very clear, like we get that I teach at an art school, right? So it's not like I'm trying to discourage you from going, but I also, you lose a lot of freedom when you owe someone anywhere from $400 to $800 a month for 15 to 30 years, right? Does that make sense to everybody? It's basically another apartment. Okay. Less negative art school one. What is one thing you wish you would have known before going to art college? One, I wish I would have known that. Luckily, I went for graphic design, and eventually I started doing practical stuff because I was overly concerned with like cool graphic design or experimental graphic design, which meant I was really good at incurring credit card debt and deferring student loans. So be very careful about that. The one thing I wish I would have known, though, is that I kind of always approached it like, yeah, I'm going to get this degree, and then I'll be a graphic designer. Then I'll be an artist. I'm not sure where I got that mindset from, but I wish that I had gone right into it off the top thinking, I'm a graphic designer. What does a graphic designer do? They make projects, and they get paid for doing those projects. I was overly reasonable and thought I had to earn that title and sort of earn that privilege of calling myself that. And I guess I thought the price of entry was this 4-year degree. Meanwhile, So I wouldn't try to do freelance work or anything because I was like, nope, I'm learning how to be a graphic designer. I'm not at the point yet where I should be exchanging work for cash. But meanwhile, I went to school with, like, say, photographers who had no qualms, not knowing shit about anything, who would be, like, doing freelance work and making money doing graphic design. And I would just be like, oh, that's weird and ridiculous. That person's a terrible graphic designer. So I wish that I had kind of known, like, whatever you're, like, doing right now, that's the thing. The degree doesn't make it. The amount of work you've done doesn't make it. It's basically, even if you can't make your work day in and day out, are you committed to the work day in and day out? Like, because there's going to be lots of days where you can't do whatever it is you're going to do. You can't work on comics because you have to deal with accounting or because you have to go to work or whatever. Those days don't make you not an artist, right? But same thing, like the 4 years spent in art school don't make you not that thing. You don't have to earn it. When it comes down to is the world doesn't really care about experience. And I wish I had known that. The world is impressed by experience, but they don't give a shit about experience. They don't give a shit if you're good. They largely look at it as you're either doing something I like or not. All the craft stuff that I keep myself up about at night, no one cares about that but me. Other people care about the color, they care about, can I deliver the thing on time, can I meet their budget, all of this other stuff. If you ever, watch like a documentary about like producing movies or something like that, you're always shocked by how kind of matter of fact it is. There's not a lot of magic happening. So like the magic is within being an artist and within being committed to it, but what everyone else cares about is like a bunch of other bullshit, which is totally fine, but I didn't know that. I thought I had to be good. And once I was good, then I could call myself a graphic designer. That's probably my absolute biggest one. And then I think I mentioned the like being more social and understanding networking as just meaning make friends, stay in touch with your friends, do things with your friends. Which I made friends, but very small amount of friends because I was mostly a cranky dickhead. And then art school 4. How would we know if art school is a good fit for us or not? That's a really good question. I think, one, if you get through the 3 weeks here and you're like, I want to go to art school, then definitively it's a good fit. But in reality, you don't take this and then just extend it for 3 months or 5 months or whatever, right? You're not going to go to art school and then have to stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning every night or 1 o'clock in the morning every night. If you do, that's actually your fault. You're doing something wrong. In general, there's the kind of emotional intensity, but you can do this and be a healthy, well-adjusted human being. If you have a hard time with ambiguity, that's going to make art school hard. If you have a hard time with someone telling you, it doesn't work and I don't know why, like a teacher telling you that, because we do that from time to time. This isn't working. I don't really know what that means. It might mean it's terrible. It might mean that I just don't like it, or it might mean you're not explaining it well. Either way, you figure it out. If something like that is going to freak you out and be like, I can't do anything with that, just tell me what's broken. That's the kind of thing that art school is really good at. That might mean like art school is going to be a really rough fit for you. And instead of majoring in art and minoring in the other thing, you might want to major in something else that's going to be a little bit more delineated and do all your electives in art, kind of flip that. Because ambiguity is a huge part of this. But if you have a level of confidence and you're open-minded and you're willing to deal with the ambiguity and not be freaked out about it, art school is probably going to be a good fit. You get this massive amount of freedom most of the time. Probably the most like tightly regimented time is your freshman year because everyone's doing the same stuff. You're all going to be doing whatever, drawing, digital imaging, photography, intro to video, all of that foundation level stuff. There's not a lot of leeway in there, but on the other hand, that stuff it's not hard. You just do the work and you pick up little things. I think that's the biggest thing. If you're excited, open-minded, enthusiastic, and can deal with that ambiguity and push yourself, then art school can be a really good fit. When people drop out of art school, it always kind of comes, it seems like it usually comes down to not being able to handle the ambiguity and not understanding that every teacher is basically doing whatever they feel like. So if you're in your first year, you're struggling with a teacher, it can be easy to think, because like you go to high school, every teacher does not do what they feel like. Every teacher gets a thing that tells them what they should be doing, and then there's leeway within that, but not a ton. Like to me, teaching high school sounds like a horrible nightmare. Art school, it's like you get a description, and then they say, figure it out. So every teacher teaches differently. Every teacher has different values and different things that they think are important and different critique styles. Some people, ambiguous. This doesn't work. And then they just send you off. And you go and do more work. And maybe you come back and it still doesn't work. They send you off again. Other teachers will be like, this area doesn't work because X, Y, and Z. And then if you disagree and you don't change it, then they penalize you for that. Even if you're like, nah, I didn't change it because of these reasons. This thing is awesome. It's perfect the way it is. I meant for it to be awkward in that spot. So everything is different constantly, and a lot of times it's people in the first year or two who can't deal with that lack of consistency, or who think every teacher is right, because every teacher is not right. It'd be pretty reasonable for you to fill out an evaluation for this class and be like, this shit was weird and stupid. I hated this. So don't do that. If your time management skills suck, art school is extra hard. I'll say that. Get that straight. If your life is a constant nightmare of unfinished projects now, while things are orderly, it is only going to get worse. So like your best way to prepare is like to learn how to get your stuff in order and develop the confidence to deal with ambiguity.